By the 2010s, China was no longer simply experiencing rapid growth. It had become deeply integrated into the global economy and had emerged as a global superpower, directly challenging the United States. China's supply chains powered industries around the world. Chinese companies expanded aggressively into international markets, and China's economic influence was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, BYD, TikTok. For the first time in modern history, Chinese corporations had become powerful enough to compete directly with some of the world's most powerful companies. But China's ambitions continued growing. Advanced technology, artificial intelligence, smart infrastructure, smart cities. And as China's influence continued expanding, concerns inside the United States also grew. Trade tensions intensified. Tariffs increased. Restrictions expanded. Chinese technology companies faced increasing pressure overseas, especially Huawei and later TikTok. But Washington's pressure on TikTok was never just about TikTok. Behind the app was a larger battle over technology and influence. It was only one front in a much larger economic struggle between the United States and China. But this conflict was far more complicated than it appeared on the surface. This confrontation was never primarily about military power. It was about industry, economics, and smart technology. To understand this war, look at the device in your hand. Today, that phone might cost around $1,000, but remove China from the equation, and that number probably doesn't stay at $1,000. Maybe it becomes $1,500. Maybe even more. The exact number isn't the point. The point is this: affordable consumer technology has never been as simple as it looks. Behind the price is a supply chain built around China. For the West, escaping dependency doesn't just mean changing logistics. It means accepting inflation. But beneath the growth, pressure inside the system was becoming harder to ignore. In China, real estate wasn't just another industry. It drove nearly 30% of the country's GDP, and more than 70% of household wealth was tied to property. Debt expanded rapidly, housing prices surged. Corruption remained a persistent problem, and the gap between rich and poor continued growing. Some cities had empty districts, some buildings stayed unfinished, and some debts became hidden liabilities buried deep inside local balance sheets. As these internal pressures mounted, the system began reasserting tighter control. Under Xi Jinping, China launched one of the largest anti-corruption campaigns. The leadership declared war on what it called tigers and flies, both powerful elites and lower-level corruption. The message was unmistakable. If the machine was going to survive, the party believed it had to discipline itself. In its modern history, thousands of officials, including high-ranking party members, were investigated and removed. Then, in late 2020, another moment caught global attention. Jack Ma, one of the most recognizable businessmen in China, After publicly criticizing parts of China's financial system, he largely disappeared from public view for a period of time, and the message became difficult to ignore. In China, economic power would never exist completely separate from political power. China became more centralized, but whether centralization can truly eliminate corruption or simply keep it under control remains one of the biggest questions. And then, COVID arrived. Factories slowed, ports became congested, entire cities locked down, and suddenly the world realized how dependent global supply chains had become on China. But the prolonged lockdowns did more than disrupt global trade. They pushed domestic financial pressures to the absolute limit, and in late 2021, one of the largest fractures inside the system finally revealed itself. The property market began to buckle. Evergrande, one of China's largest real estate developers. At its peak, it symbolized the scale of China's construction boom. But when the company collapsed under nearly $300 billion in liabilities, becoming one of the most heavily indebted property developers in the world, it exposed the extreme risks hidden beneath years of nonstop, debt-fueled expansion. And ultimately, the government chose overall stability over saving the company. But China is not standing still. The leadership has already concluded that the old model, built on debt, construction, and endless expansion, has reached its limits. Now the country is attempting another transformation toward advanced manufacturing, artificial intelligence, green energy, domestic consumption, and technological self-reliance. The machine is still moving, but now it is trying to evolve. Looking back at it all, the fall of the Qing dynasty, civil war, foreign invasion, economic collapse, and decades of reconstruction, one question still remains. How did China catch up with America? Part of the answer lies in history. China is one of the oldest continuous civilizations on Earth. It has survived collapse many times before, and it has rebuilt itself many times before. But history alone was not enough. China chose a different path, not to become another America, but to build a different kind of machine. The World Factory, an economic machine built on massive labor. And perhaps most importantly, China entered globalization at exactly the right moment. The question is no longer whether China can rise. It already has. The new question is, can a machine built for nonstop acceleration adapt before its own weight begins slowing it down? Because when a machine becomes this large, its future affects everyone. What next?